Welcome to another episode of the Top Lines and Tails podcast and our series looking at characters in livestock. And we are this week once again sponsored by Harborough, suppliers and manufacturers of quality livestock nutrition. Characters in livestock covers a few bases, and usually we're looking at some oldies with a long history in breeding and generally entertaining folk. But this week we pick a younger model and a man who's always entertained, and but also a great breeder and a good kenner of stock and an all-round good guy and piss taker, Di Clark. Welcome, Di.
Hi, Andy.
Di, I hope you're ready for this. You may be borrowing a little bit of injustice from some of your pals there, and there might be a few payback days, but it's your day on the floor today.
I'm more worried the fact is you call me a model. I don't think I've ever been a model. Maybe a model football, maybe it's the only thing I've ever been referred to.
Well, Christ, if everybody models themselves on Di, would be an interesting world, don't?
Yeah, that's true, yes, aye.
Just going back to your family, your old man was in dairy originally, is that right? Dairy farm at Garngower?
Yeah, started milking dairy cows at Garngower in 1989 when they split up from Uncle Archie at Woodlands. So started milking dairy cows then.
But would be involved in Texels before that. The name of Garngower, of course, for those that don't know, you Di, is up there with the best in the Texel breed. And you say your old man started with the Garngower flock going back in the early days. I would have thought when some of the first Texels came into the country. Yeah,
Dad was one of the first. I think he was in the early teen numbers. He was way back through Jock McGregor.
Mm-hmm.
Jock was the first one that got him back, and I think Dad always saying he nearly got killed with his mother when he spent, I can't remember exactly what it was about 400 or 500 quid for these two gimmers that come home. So like they picked, and then it went, I think they sold their first shearing tup for about 800 quid the first year at Woodlands. Well, they're at Woodlands first, and they were in blondes at the same time.
But so Woodlands would have been the flock then originally before you started the Garngower?
Yeah, Woodlands was the flock till 1989 when my dad and Uncle Archie split up.
How far back do you remember with those Texels, Di? You'd be a boy when you got the first ones in there.
Yeah, I might have been in a elite uptown dancer that we bought, and we sold Garngower Whiz Kid at 4,000 to Ruth that used to be at Carlisle. She used to be with Sticks. Oh, my memory's terrible.
You wait till you get to my age.
Oh, it's a good 30 years ago yet then.
Get on you.
No, we sold for, Whiz Kid, and then that kind of followed through, really.
I remember you being about the tup sales anyway as a young teenager, about there and being keen as mustard and being in and amongst it and causing mischief anyway, and hey, you're probably still doing it.
Yeah, just know the same crack now at the Texel sales, know at the old market when you used to go in there, and Jim Curry was there, and Dad and Uncle Archie, and Bobby Carruth and that, they were all sitting on the drink. They used to get in, me and Jock Curry were wee boys, and got in our dads and mooch a pound off them, and Jim Curry used to give us all his change and say, right, fuck off, you wee cunts. And then the next year later, you were probably out buying a drink and trying to getting pished like the rest of them.
Yeah, it's called growing up, Di. I'm not sure if any of us have done it fully, but that's what it's called.
I remember, you were maybe there when Caroline Curry was born at the Texels.
Right.
Sale at the old market, and it was the second sale, and Jim Curry had the head wedding at it, and there was Fletch was there and Dan Douglas, and they wrote a poem, and it came on the lines of Dan Douglas, Curry grabbed ugly bastard and hit him with a plate. Ken like Fletch wrote it. It was actually really, really funny when you read it again.
And just going to yourself, you're the youngest, I think, of three brothers. Would that be right? To Andrew and
yes.
Alan, your two brothers?
Yeah, there's 5 years between me and Alan and 3 years between me and Andrew. There's 76, 78 and 81.
And of course now, moving on, the three of you have, I think you three of you got a flock of Texels each, haven't you? Garngower still going, there's Teaglum and there's Clarkson. I don't know who belongs to who and which ones.
Yeah, Alan's in Garngower. Andrew is in Teaglum at Black Hill. And I'm in Clark's at Lee Meadow Farm at Braidwood at Carluke here, which was the Clark's flock was established in 2017. And we've just all the flocks are run together until basically we split up a year coming 1st of June. So to do that, we basically all worked together, and we did do a lot of flushing. We had 2 big days of flushing all the best ewes over 2 days, and then done the best ewe lambs and some of the ewes again the next time in March. So that's how we got ourselves established on flocks that we have today and with shorts. And then last year was the first year that we actually bought tups ourselves.
You pulled the flocks, flushed the ewes, and divvied them up 3 ways. Is that about right?
Yeah. We put the ewes into pens. The Texel ewes, once you're all kind of decided, once we're all happy with our flushes, what the ewe lambs at Lambton, your bit, and basically 20 were your ewe lambs, and 21 was the same. And then basically we went back with the ewes. We put them all into pens once we sold the gimmers, and you're basically right, we all had to pick 3 numbers each that we wanted first. And if none of the other 2 picked it, you got it.
Okay. So
the 3 we just stood in the pens one day and we sorted your ewes out, and sometimes one as we go, well, actually I got my first 2 picks, well, somebody can get her, and we actually worked very well. I wasn't surprised there was no arguments or no fights, but you had to be reasonable, you had to come and go with each other.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And yeah, that's again a grown-up way of looking at it. But I mean, you got a lot of good ewes to pick from certainly from the early flocks anyway, and obviously a lot of history behind you. We'll go into a little bit more of your Texel successes in a minute or two. But I will ask you one question: which is the best flock out of the 3 of them?
Oh, that goes without a doubt, Clark.
You got the floor there. You can say what you like, Dave. But you never know. I might get your brothers on another podcast.
Sometimes it might come back and bite me. That really. I don't think there's much in it, to be honest. No. There's not much in it. We're all going to get the same flocks within reason. Tegan did do well in the flock competition. I done well in the ewe lambs. Alan was the same. So, to be honest, I think it's just somebody else's preference who's got the best.
Sure.
This is when you have to try and make it yourself, isn't it?
That's true enough. You've got to make it on your own, but at the same time look after each other too, and that's families, isn't it? And between you and your brothers, you guys have broken the record at Lanark. How many times now, Dave? Do you know?
No, we haven't actually broke it. We've held the top price. We've bred sons. Our sons of tups that we've sold have broke the record. There was Sportsman's a star at 130,000. Mm-hmm. It was a Teaglem Young Gun son. And then there was Radar was a Teaglem Young Gun son, and he was need to double check that, Andy, but he was 130,000. So we haven't actually held the record. We've topped Lanark a few times, topped it right back in 1999, I think was the first year with Garngower Field Marshal, which was a Garngower Elite son that we kept, and we had an open day that year, and everybody came and we'd rain rash our lambs, and everybody raved about this tup lamb. And I think that was the problem. We got ourselves hyped up. Uh-huh. Hype wasted the lamb and probably wasted us. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people said, oh, we really like your lamb, didn't come in the ring. He was going to make a serious lot of money. And he was in the ring, and David Houghton, the top hill bottom at 6,500, shared him with Big Danny Fileman. Mm-hmm. And Dad kept the sharing him, and he bred Field Marshal next year at 14,000.
Right. It just goes to show it isn't always the dear ones that breed. As you said, there's a bit of a lesson there to be learnt, Di, when you do hype a beast up there that everybody thinks that one's out of my price bracket, and they start looking somewhere else. It's you learn those lessons in the hard way, I guess.
Oh, Dad always said, if you like someone, you follow it to the ring and try and buy it and go to your price.
Mm-hmm. And with regards to the shows, you guys obviously turn out at the Highland every year. There, you've had your share of winnings there, and the Yorkshire too. I think you guys give it a go. So where's your top spin at the Highland show over the years?
The best year was the year of Teaglem Young Gun's mum. She won the Gimmers third in interbreed, at Roy Highland.
Oh, it's the singles, in the singles, huh?
Singles, yes. And then she went to the Yorkshire and she won everything. Yeah, she won interbreed. She smashed it. Uh-huh. And she has bred on that same year. We sold Teaglem Young Gun at 70,000, and he went to Sportsman's and Proctor's, and Sportsman sold Sportsman's a star the next year at 120,000.
Yeah.
So, and then it was Radar the following year.
Okay.
Radar, which is 130,000. No, we've won 2 or 3 ewe lamb classes and worked away, but that's the first year we've really won the Gimmers and done well.
The Gimmer's always the class to win, isn't it? And again, for our listeners who no idea what we're talking about here in the Texels, some of your guys and guys overseas. I mean, the Texel class at the Highland, there'll be best part of 100 Gimmers in it, won't it? It's a hell of a class. It's probably the biggest class probably in the show in the country, and probably
not the ewe lambs. I would say the ewe lambs are maybe bigger, but it's some class to win.
Yeah.
Even to be placed.
I know that from my own games. I've taken Texels to the Highland, and come away in a short lead and being happy with nothing. There's nothing else to show for it. But yeah, that's what you got to aspire to, isn't it? That's the class, the gimmer class that everybody wants to get into.
Yeah.
And we talked about flushing there, and you guys obviously flushed a lot of ewes when you're trying to build your female flocks back up there, as most breeders do. But there's a lot of flushing going on now to breed tups rather than to breed females. I mean, the flushing originally was about building your females up. How do you feel about it now that everybody's flushing just to breed tups to make money?
I think it's getting to the stage, definitely in the Texel breed, that you're going to just run a small flock of 15, 20 ewes. You're going to try and flush that 10, 15 of them. I think that's the way it's going. You're flushing new lambs. I know it's not right. I'm not saying it is, but at the end of the day, you're trying to get that generation further forward than everybody else. And
when everybody's doing it, I suppose. And I mean, I had a great conversation last night with Keith Jameson, the legend that is Keith, and he got a few ideas about that anyway, saying that maybe flushing new lambs isn't right because they haven't bred, and flushing some of the ewes that maybe hadn't got. They weren't full of milk, or maybe got a blind quarter and still being flushed, and that was being passed down the generation, and other ideas about it as well. As you said, it's maybe not right, but as everybody's going to do. Do you see that carrying on?
I don't actually think flushing will much. When you speak to some of these flushing people, they're saying if you get 10 years of the animal rights people that got a hold of this, flushing could be stopped. It's a wake-up call for us to go back to try to lamb these Texel ewes and try and bring us natural ewe, which what the Texel was brought in for, wasn't it? The maternal sire, to give us good cross ewe that can nurse two lambs and bring her back through to...
Certainly is that conversation. I'm not so sure with the animal rights, but it certainly is that conversation when your tup lambs are all being reared on surrogate mothers or surrogate mules that have enough milk to feed four lambs, and they're only rearing one, and then they're getting weight performance figures from that. It's an interesting conundrum, and I think a few other breeds are going into it because the money that's in the Texels, I guess, it's one that's raising an eyebrow with one or two, and as you said, the small flocks when there's only a dozen sheep and you're turning out 100 lambs a year is different.
And I would say that it's getting very difficult to sell Texel tup lambs now because everybody's got them. So you go there at the moment, you're sitting just under 80 lambs running. They're running 50, so there's 40 lambs. Mm-hmm. There's the ones that aren't good enough, you're just going to chop, hang them up. So they've been an expensive lamb to get there. And then you go to Lanark, we've only got 80 ewes, so you only get 3 tup lambs to Lanark. You get 40 Carlisle. We can go down to Worcester, but Worcester's a 5-6 hour drive for us to go down to Worcester. Wales the same, and I'm only going to get 3 there and 3 there. Is it justifiable for me to travel around all these sales every day, time, and the cost the way fuel is at the moment? And then of Kelso, I can take as many as I want to Kelso, for reason. And I think it's getting very difficult now to go and sell that ewe that's flushed well. She's got 5 or 6 lambs and they're all good. One's good and the rest are shite. You know what? And they're scattered around the countryside.
Well, again, the conversation I had with the Texel breeder this week was that when you do sell that good one as well at that top price, and you've got... Go to Lanark and want to buy the sheep and it makes 60,000, and but you can go to another sale and buy its full brother for 3,000. And as Keith said, that's maybe that's the one that breeds. That's it does dilute the gene pool a little bit to make it harder and harder for folks to buy outcrosses and spend a lot of money on one sheep when there's a lot of similar sheep running about.
Well, you look at Mures Blondin. Mm-hmm. Now I remember Mures Blondin. I think that's one of the best Texel tups I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Now, Mures Blondin was before his time and he was 33,000 to John Forsyth at Glenside. And I think he was a triplet and his brother went to another sale and John Forsyth bought him for $3,000 just to make sure nobody else had that breeding. And you can see, John, I remember 2012, the year we lost father, we sold the Teaglem Tornado to Robbie Wilson for 60,000. But we had about 4 or 5 other brothers of him. Mm-hmm. And Robert Laird de Camwell and that, they bought one of his brothers at Worcester, and everybody goes, oh, this is another brother, and they're like, oh well, we can get the same breeding without doing it, really.
You know what I'm saying? Hey, I'm not making an argument here. The floor is yours, Di, but there certainly is a bit of a backlash to the amount of sheep that are being flushed now, as you say, when you've got a dozen ewes and you're turning out 50, 60 lambs year on year. if they're not all profitable, then the job isn't so easy.
No, and it's a very costly. You've got this cross ewe nursing one lamb, really. When she could have been nursing two, and the pure lamb could go and be 5,000 or 6,000. But if it's just a killing lamb, it's 150 quid. Like, if she could have nursed two a month later, with less feeding, less hassle.
Yeah.
I'm not against it. I'm meaning to do it. We're meaning to flush a few more this year and not do any ewe lambs. Last year, our ewe lambs averaged 3. Don't get me wrong, I have some tremendous lambs out of them, but it's probably better just going this flushing the Texels in February, having these lambs, and then have nothing else, and then straight on the crossbreeds. Because we started lambing the 10th of February, and we're still bloody lambing yet, and that's nearly May.
And what you lambing does mainly cross ewes, the rest of them die?
My cross ewes are all, my wife Elizabeth is into her true blues, and we've started crossing with Texel cross ewes with the true blue.
Right, you can explain to me and the listener what the hell a true blue is?
The posh type, the true blue face Leicester before the start. The true blue face Leicester. I'm not getting into that too much. That could upset 2 or 3 people.
You carry on. You just throw that.
No,
if you mention the word mule and blue-faced Leicester in the same sentence, somebody will get upset, but I won't.
Yeah, I know you won't, but certainly a lot of you can get back. But I definitely lot of them went to breed the crossing type blue-faced Leicester to try and get these nice brown-faced ewe lambs. And I must admit, there's nothing better as this brown-faced mule ewe lamb running at the field, but she's not going to milk any better just because she's got a brown face.
I'm saying nothing. Carry on.
Come on, Andy.
Carry on. You dig a hole. I'm not helping you out of it. To be fair, I commentated on the crossing blues at the Highland show last year, and there was a crossing blue in there she was a mule to type, but what a ewe lamb that won it, and what a beast she was, and just the character about them, I have to say, was tremendously smart with those colours. A real showy beast. But you're right. The true blue is where it started.
Yeah, so that's it. We used a bit of the Dorset, and we did like the Dorset, but they were just getting too big and too heavy for us.
Okay. On the Texel.
On the Texel, and me being a shearer, did cry when I had to count the buggers upside down and take the bellies off them and the legs and the socks and the nose and the head. So they were just too big, fit ewes.
I was going to ask you if you can come and shear my Rylands this year. You're probably going to say no then.
A trip to France, I've done worse for a bottle of wine.
But so you're now using the blue on the Texel, and hey, that's a Texel mule, isn't it? And that's working well for you. What are you doing with the lambs out of those?
With the lambs, I put them back to the Texel for the first year, keep the ewe lambs, and then they go back to the Texel another year, and then their lambs go back to the blue.
Okay.
So we take them to nearly half or 3/4, and then we put them back to the blue and just try and rotate them back for it. Don't bring in anything. So we did try another breed this year, and some of the blues that are maybe too blue, much to my sins, the breed that it is. Some people call them Suffolks. My daughter calls them Duffolks. So we've tried that, and to be honest, we use him.
I remember talking to Michael Weaver, him saying he was putting the blues on the Suffolks, and that's what they were using, and he said that was a tremendous cross. But they'd be big sheep, wouldn't they? They'd be take a bit of handling, I would have thought, to die. Yeah,
I'm kind of worried how much feeding they might take later on. We are kind of using them for the reset, to be honest. At the end of the day, we were kind of trying heading for good, big, strong reset ewes.
Sure.
Everybody says these Suffolks are easy lambed, they're milky, and they're big, fit ewes. So rooms, and that is at the end of the day, you're dreaming for this Texel tup lamb, isn't it?
I suppose so, and of course, again, it depends on the Suffolk that you get and where you buy your Suffolks from, and I won't get into that argument too deeply.
Well, I'll give you that argument, because I'm quite sure the wee fella, I'll love it, because when I went through to Mr. John Bartley, a.k.a. Beachy, we went through, when we were invited through, I was in a Beltex tip, because fun enough, the last one died. So Beachy says, come through, have a couple of lambs, and I walked in, and the first thing caught my eye. I'm not saying these Beltex were crap at the end of the day. He had a really cocky Suffolk lamb, and I think actually took Beachy by surprise. He nearly scaled his beer, I think, to be perfectly honest with you. So, with a bottle of Grey Goose and discussed the price of the Beltex tip and the Suffolk. And he did text me next morning saying, "Did you buy a fucking Suffolk?" So that's the way I bought a Suffolk lamb and put my 40 ewes this year, and the lambs are good.
So you're putting him across the Blue Cross Texel, that be right?
Yeah, the ones that look more, I've took more of the blue look about them.
Okay.
The longer, tighter skinned, the right bare-necked ones, put them over the Suffolk to try and get this wee bit more cover on them.
Interesting to see. And obviously you're experimenting. Again, people listening to this begin, Chris, this guy's going all over the place, but you're experimenting to find the right sheep that suits you and suits your way of production. And is there a goal plan here? Is there an end goal here? With you think you might end up with the right thing? I mean, we've seen breeds develop from this before, where you're crossing one with another one and then trying to stabilize it a bit, or is this at the moment you're just trying to find out what suits?
I think basically, as everybody says, "Oh, my breed of sheep's the best, that sheep's breed is the best." I think it's a lot of nonsense, in my opinion. There is no ideal breed of sheep. It's just what suits your system or what you want to make suit your system.
And the Texel obviously features, doesn't it? Because that's where you
that's
where you started.
Maybe, yeah.
That's where your bread and butter is, where you started from. But yes, I can see. I'd be interested to see where at some stage you say you're running 300 ewes, Di. So
just about 300 cross ewes and plus the Texels.
You'll end up back to one specific type, I guess, at some stage.
It's a trial and error. If it doesn't work, the tip lamb wasn't a lot of money. They just goes down the road. But it's trying to get this good roomy sheep. Supposing it's lambing an embryo, is to lamb 2 big lambs that's going to nurse and kill the lambs at 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah, decent. Yeah, fair enough. So you're looking for
on the 42 kilo mark, isn't it?
And the sheep that's dual purpose to suit your system. That's fair enough. I mentioned earlier on that I spoke to Keith Jamieson last night. He's in good shape, to be fair, and he was asking after you died, but he did say that he said Margaret had marked every catalogue that had been in Lanark tup sale since the Lanark tup sale began, I think, and they were all in there, and I said, I haven't got them at the moment, they're with Di Clark, so are you looking after those?
I am, and I'll tell you, it takes some reading. When you see some of the sales that Keith has sold in the past, it's phenomenal. Like his on-farm sales, he was averaging over £1,000.
I think he averaged £1,000 for averaged £1,000, he said, for 80 Texels in 1988. But you're right, the Gimmer sales, I think in 93, I think he averaged £1,450 for 70 Gimmers.
It's phenomenal. It's unbelievable. I remember the first year we sold all our Gimmers was at 60 odd Gimmers. The first year, the triple whammy sale.
Mm-hmm. Now
we bought Nermuir Confetti and Glenside Clear Cut the year to use the tups. We tried to buy Creekhead Crackerjack and we didn't get them.
Mm-hmm.
And we said we average £1,000 for 60 Gimmers. Mm-hmm. And we're like, this is not going to stand like that. And where are we now? You go to Select 7 sale and most people are averaging 1,500 to £2,000.
Again, Keith, going back into 93, you averaged £1,400 for 70 Gimmers. That's buying you a farm. Or it's not buying you a farm, but it's certainly going towards it's paying the taxman anyway.
It's crazy. And look at the Texel Gimmers now, they're mental.
Is that going to carry on? Everybody's got Texels. I went out to Texels when Foot and Mouth took mine a long time ago, and a lot of people still going into Texels, and a lot of people still wanting Texels, and you'll have as good a demand for Gimmers as you do for tups, Di, or between you anyway. There's still a hell of a demand for the best, isn't there?
I think the good thing is Gimmers are easy cashed in, because there's not the work goes into a Gimmer as a tip lamb.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't creep any of my Gimmers. They don't get fed as you lambs. They come back, they go to winter, and luckily enough they were at Keith Jamison's this year. They've come back looking good.
Mm. And
then you bring them in. We've got the spring fling sale on the 21st of May. Right. We've got 4 Gimmers going to that. And Ken, if the Gimmers are averaging £800, you're delighted, really.
Mm-hmm.
Ken, an early sale, by the time you take them to Select 7, they need to be hitting another nearly £1,000 in their head. The time you get them there in lamb and fed them to that sale.
I'll give you 500 a piece for them now, save for the work.
I will risk it, I think. If I get to pick the ones you get for £500, I'll send them over.
Not that it interests you, Dave, but I might be there before that happens.
When we come and share their islands, I'll bring them with me.
Do that. And you've been amongst the Texels before we move on to what else you've done, of course. And tell me some of the most influential tups that you've bought there. You mentioned a few that you've sold there. What's Blondin didn't come to you, obviously. You said you liked him, but what's the tup that's coming in? But a stamp.
No, Blondin we did. We got Blondin. Blondin left tremendous big females. Mm-hmm. Tremendous females. It's a big stretchy lamb. Nethermuir Confetti really brought some tremendous females in as well. Bred well across the board. Nethermuir Confetti. Joe Tex, Clonog Joe Tex, we shared with Ettrick at 6,000 at Lanark.
Okay.
His power and females was phenomenal. And then you just move on, you go up through to some of the other ones. Strathbogie Smoky Blue bred well, and we bought Stifler on the same day. It's just trying to remember all these tips that come up through and bred. Not Yardsman is probably one of the most consistent tips I think we ever have bred.
Okay.
He came out of Lanark at 16,000. We shared them with Keith Jimison, Wally Fleming and Nielsen the Brackenridge. We shared them. But he was still getting used last year. I flushed a gimmer last year to him. And for a 5-6-year-old tup, he's still looking tremendous till he passed away this year.
Right.
He's one of the most consistent tips, left a right good stretch, big long tips. It's one of the best tips.
And Chumbawamba be the other one that I suppose would have made a mark with you?
Chumbawamba's females are tremendous. Just the pure flash of them is unreal.
And he's Proctus.
Which has done well and left great.
Is he
Maybe left Donald McPherson more money as us, right enough. But
and he's Proctor's, isn't he?
He's Proctor's Chumbawamba. He came out of... He was the 1st of April born, and he came out of Carlisle at 15,000. Really wee lamb with these massive lugs. And we shared them with Donald McPherson and Stuart Bartley, Hairstein. And he bred these phenomenal, good stretchy lambs with phenomenal lugs.
You're still using him?
Breedy. Yes, he's still going about. I didn't use him this year because all my females are practically Chumbawambas.
Okay, so yeah, Dave, following on from the Texels, of course, and this is an all-round livestock podcast, and you're an all-round livestock character, of course, you would have to be in cattle as well, and Garngar, as we said, would be in dairy cows, and I think they still do run dairy cows, don't they, your brother at Garngar?
Yeah, they're now known as Nathanvale. He's under his Nathandale prefix for the Holstein cows. Those Holstein Friesians he's on.
And is he running those pure and pedigree?
Yes, pedigree now malts and robots.
Okay.
2 robots in there.
That's some job that, and the robots is a hell of an investment to get into there, but a robot to save a man or save 2 men, I suppose it's this day and age, that's the way it goes.
They don't seem any less busy anyway when you speak to these dairy boys with their robots.
Ever seen a farmer that isn't busy? Are you busy, Dave?
Yeah. Nah, just living life.
And you mentioned briefly, I think, or I certainly mentioned him about being with you at the Highland Show going back 15 years or so, and you had blonde cattle there, and that's probably when you were still at Garngar yourself, weren't you? And you were chasing a few blondes at that time as well, Dave, from I remember. Are you still doing that?
Chased a few for a while, and then I found a brunette. That was a problem, Andy.
That's not a problem. She speaks highly of you. You behave.
No, I moved into Lee Meadow in 2010, and basically Meadow was a hill farm just over next to hill farm, a kind of rougher grazing farm, and there was no fences on it at all. There was only an old byre. There were still mountain cows in it till we moved in, and when we came in with Dad, we bought basically he had a lot of cows, suckling calves. We bought them. They were Simmental cross calves. We sold the bullocks, and they paid for everything basically. And then we bought just 2 or 3 sales around about and bought cows. And we brought the blondes over, and we changed the blonde prefix to Clarks for the Texels. And then in 2018, we went into Shorthorns.
Just go back to the blondes before we go on to the Shorthorns there. You had some damn good blondes from what I can remember. I mean, do you still have a few blondes about? What do you make of the blonde breed just now?
I still think they're a very good place. It was just, I'd maybe say that it just kind of wore out. People were maybe moving off them. Some people say their temperament was wild. I think they just didn't suit the Lanarkshire area. To sell your blondes, you were more having to go to the Carlisle. Because a lot of these boys loved the blonde cows, and we still have a few pure, but cross blonde cows. And a lot of them are building them with the Belgian blue for the good shapy calves. And they were very milky. I think they are tremendously milky, but I think they just maybe ran their time, and maybe some of the people didn't use as good a bulls through the breed, and the breed kind of maybe was its own worst enemy.
I live in that country, as you know, down in France here. I'm right in Aquitaine, and there's blondes all around us, blonde cattle, should I say. And yeah, you're right. Some of them are are leggy and maybe not with width about some of them. But so you went away from the blondes and you started in the Shorthorn, saw the writing on the wall, the Shorthorn breed is wanted, and you went in and you're under the prefix of Lee Burn Shorthorns, is that right?
Yes, we went into the Lee Burn. We went to James Playfair Hannier Tofts, and we bought 3 heifers there. And we come home, bought them myself, me and my wife, and then we went back down and we bought another 5 cows and another 3 heifers.
From Tofts?
From Tofts. And that is basically where my herd is started.
James will be sending you a Christmas card then?
It's about the first one he sent me. So that's when we went to Tofts, and basically we sold the first bull. We sold a few bulls at home privately. We sold the first bull there at 15-month-old calf in February, and it was $3,000.
Good.
So delighted. But what got me into the Shorthorns was we were needing a bull to calf heifers, and we had too many problems with the limousine. No disrespect to them. The fine bone and the muscles come on, and we weren't getting on that well with the calves. So we bought a Shorthorn bull. It came from Alistair Morton at Stowbelly, and at the time we had a lot of Celiac heifers that we were buying. Before we bought Celiac heifers for the same man up at Broughton for 4 or 5 years. And we're crossing them with the Shorthorn, and they were coming tremendous cows. And that's when we decided to get into the Shorthorns.
What number of cross cows are you running there, Di?
There is 60 cross cows and just over 20 pure cows.
Okay. And the pure cows taking over, or is that you stuck at 20?
No, my full intention is possibly to take the whole herd to pure Shorthorns.
Okay.
We run a Charlie bull for any of the cows that have got sore feet or cows that are problem at calving time, which to be fair the Shorthorns haven't got an issue. But once they get to a certain age, the cows will go to the Charlie bull. We sell a lot of heifers. The Shorthorn heifers were high health, so we're getting good money for our heifer calves at a year old for recips or people want a good health status. So why change off them? When it goes to the Charlie, we know automatically that they're going straight to the store ring.
Sure. Yeah, we've done a podcast on the Shorthorns, and there's a diversification within the Shorthorn breed. There's something for everybody amongst the Shorthorns, and that's probably why they've grown from gone from strength to strength where they are. And the Shorthorn numbers are still rising. But are you still seeing a demand for crossing bulls in the Shorthorn breed, do you think?
I think there is. Yeah, when you go up to that stable, there's a lot of people looking for bulls, and it gives you a good buzz that they're wanting that. I think the country's changing a wee bit onto this, the native cow, to give this fleshing cow, and then we're putting them back to the Charlie bull. There's plenty of fleshing. You can carve a bus out these Shorthorn cows and the Celiars, and this big Charlie calf grows on a nice orange colour.
Sure.
And it is selling well.
And there's obviously a trade for the Shorthorns in the native breed now from Morrison's and these others with their contracts. People are leaning more and more towards the native beef, aren't they?
Yes. And their temperament, I think their temperament is tremendous, and they're very milky. You know what I mean? It's my opinion. I love them. I think they're really great cows. They're so easy, so cooperative, and you get a twisted rascal, but that's not really. They're more cheeky, acquisitive animals.
And you've got a bull for sale in a sale coming up just recently, I think you said. So good luck with that one. And
yeah, thank you.
And one of your other brothers breeds Charolais, so that'll be the one that doesn't do the Holsteins or the Shorthorns. Which one's that?
Andrew at Black Hill runs the Teaglum Charlies. I think he's about 10 or a dozen cows. And he seems to have top bull was 9,000 a few years ago. He got 9,000 for a bull.
So that's him supplying you with a bull as well. That's kind of handy off your brother.
Yeah, well, we did one for a while there, but he didn't have any bulls, so they reluctantly go and buy one.
Well.
He buys quite a lot of my Shorthorn heifers.
Good.
I'm not doing Andrew buys them, so it's quite handy.
I'm going to keep it in the family. You mentioned earlier on, of course, the shearing, and you've grown up shearing sheep, and are you still shearing these days, Dave?
Well, I still can fling a bit of handpiece round about the sheep one or two. I've got to the kind of stage in life that I was never really that good at competitions, but I'm certainly better at talking at it.
But you'll have a few pals about you there that you'll have gone. You did do some shearing competitions, didn't you? I've seen, and I'm right in thinking that you talk about it, as you said now, because don't you commentate on the shearing at the shows?
I've done the Highland show since I was 26.
Right.
And this is me now 40, in my 40th year.
Right.
So I've done it since I was too old for young farmers back in the day. And I've done the World Champs in Wrexham in Southern Ireland. I got asked over to do the World Champs here.
This is commentating, yeah? Not cheering.
Yeah, commentating, and worked with a boy called Hugh Condron, got me in, and I loved it. I learnt a lot of a big chap in New Zealand called Norm Haraway, and he learnt me a lot. And it made totally different, like commentating on the wool handling, the blade shearing, which isn't exciting. I'm not going to say it is exciting, but for people watching it, and you actually get into a rhythm of just talking away and filling people in the information of what's actually happening. And that gave me a big boost doing the Worlds, learning off the two lads. And then I was asked out 4 years ago to the ones in Invercargill.
Right, nice.
But I couldn't go because it was lambing time, Texels. So, and now we've got the World Champs next year at the Royal Highland.
Is there next year, not this year? Yeah, okay. But
no, this.
You missed a trip to Invercargill, a fantastic place, and obviously a great, it's a shearing mecca, isn't it, down there in southern New Zealand? But have you ever been down there?
Yeah, I shored down in Winton for a few weeks.
Okay.
Shored down in Winton, and that was good. I loved New Zealand. I actually liked the north better. I worked up in a place called Pukekohe, just south of Northland, down the Waikato River, and it was great. It was different shearing. It was harder to understand that you're pulling this sheep out with bloody wool everywhere. But you worked away steady, you just, being a young lad, you played hard, and some days you didn't shear that well, and other days you shear a lot better.
Somehow, I've never imagined you being steady at anything.
I remember one year we were shearing, there was me, John McGregor, Fallon Falls, and John Sars at Greenbank, and we were shearing we're down working at Fielding at a place called Hunterville, and we had one big night the night before, and we thought we weren't shearing, and the boss phoned us, Alistair Cummings, I think this is at the time, said, right, you Scotty boys, you're on crutching duty tomorrow, you're there tomorrow, and the next day you've got 4,000 to do or something. So we, right, no bother, we'll go and we'll just crutch them, we're going hard. So I think the girl's name was Jess at the time, the wool ross. She says, right, I'll drive you tomorrow. She's picking these up. So, well, we had a big night to drink because we stayed in the pub, the station in at Hunterville, and we had a big night. And the next morning we stood up. There was a boy, Ian Anderson, another Scottish boy. He left. He fell asleep in the bar actually, and we left for work at 5 o'clock in the morning, still guttered, out our head. John and Bankside went to bed a wee bit early, but oh no, they decided he wasn't going to his bed, and Jess came with us, and she crutched the lambs, and I crutched the ewes in the pens. And when she was crutching the lambs, I fell asleep in the corner. And we do, in New Zealand, you do 2 hour runs. You do for 7 till 9, then you stop for half an hour. So 9:30 to 11:30, then you stop for an hour and a half for your lunch. And we come back, and John and I were hitting 600 odds before the last run. And I was still sitting at 280.
You paid,
and I have honest.
You paid by the head, of course.
Yes, you get paid. We were getting, was it 60 cents, I think, or something at the time. And I have honestly never went as hard in my entire life. And the end of the day, they were both hitting 800. I was just over the 600 mark. And I think they both said, if you'd went as hard as that all day, we would have finished these sheep ages ago.
Just about paid for your drink bill the night before, by the sound of it.
Yes.
Oh, well, good days. And what do you make of New Zealand? I mean, the sheep in New Zealand, it's a different way of life, isn't it? I mean, they wouldn't understand you boys fleshing Texels and lambing all the sheep. It's easy care, isn't it? It's a different way of life, different world.
Totally different world. And we seen around quite a few Texel flocks, and they're big. They're as long as trains, but they're totally different sheep. Not these heads, big, longer face, long as they're easy lambing, but they're massive, absolutely massive.
Yeah.
But they're out there, they've kind of changed a lot with the times in New Zealand now. When you see a lot of them, they're used to a massive thing, shearing wool was a big massive pay thing. But you see now, a lot of them are moving off the wool.
Yes.
They're making more money for meat sheep now. There is Beltecs out there now in New Zealand. You see 2 or 3 folk, but the Texels are certainly getting better, and the Suffolks as well. They were tremendous sheep.
Mm-hmm.
Big, stretchy sheep, but it's a total different way of life.
Yeah.
We were at one farm down in the south, I think it was King Country, and there was this sheep. It was no well. The sheep was hanging back. I don't know what was wrong with her. You just seen she was hanging back, whether it was Yaxiti out there at the time and nobody knew what it was or nobody wanted to admit it what it was. And the farmer picked the rifle up. It was sitting strapped across the sunroof and inside the car, pulled out his gun and shot this sheep out a mob of 250 ewes.
Yeah.
And one of us said to him, what happened if you missed her? He says, I've got plenty of bullets in the glove compartment, son. And that's the way he looked at it.
Yeah, different life in different way. And you said about the Suffolks, of course, some of those New Zealand Suffolks have found their way back into the UK, maybe because some of the Suffolks in the UK had become a little bit too hard and too difficult to farm, and it's a totally different type of sheep with the same name, isn't it?
Yeah, they're actually tremendous sheep. I know quite a lot of boys are using them. They've got that wee bit finer bone and stretchy sheep.
Yeah. And moving on to yourself, as you said, now you're approaching 40. You got a family there about you, Di? Some young lambs off the old block.
Yeah, I've got a daughter who's 4 next month, and I have a wee boy that's just turned 2 there. He's a Rabbie Burns child.
Okay.
James, he's named after his grandpa. Okay. He's James William of his other grandpa, and Katie is Katie Helen Clark. Okay. And they totally love pet lambs, and it's a nightmare, Andy, because any wee pet lamb, this wee thing's the size out of hogs that are the size of a pint glass, and she seems to want to cuddle them for a while under a heat lamp, which isn't just ideal.
But you'll get them keen to go into the farm yourself.
Yes, you can't actually keep them inside. They love it. Mm-hmm. They're outside. Katie totally loves sheep. She loves sheep all the time. She could play in the sheep shed for ages and just sheep. James, tractor and cows. Okay. He runs about all day playing with a cow or a tractor in the house, which I don't mind the cow. I'm not so keen on the tractor right enough because they just sound expensive and can break down. You're right about tractors on that. It sounds expensive and getting more so, and everything's getting more so at the moment, isn't it, Diane? The job's getting harder. How do you see the next couple of years? I mean, the job's input costs are going through the roof just now, aren't they? It's a little bit worrying. I think it is very worrying. The price of fertiliser, and then everybody keeps saying it's dropped here again. Is that because they weren't selling any, or they've just was too greedy and they are feeding? We just ordered a bulk load of feeding the other day and filled both bins, just so we don't need to buy any calf creep feeding for summer till the back end. Mm-hmm. We don't creep much of our calves, to be honest. We only creep the pure calves, the bull calves, not till later on in July. None of the rest of the calves, we keep all our calves throughout the spring to keep them right through. So hopefully no need that much feeding. No, you're right. I think farmers just shut up shop, do they not? The price of it just now, and of course, with this podcast, of course, is sponsored by Harborough, and I think you're a user of some of their product, Di? Yes, I am using Harborough's baby lamb pellets for my Texel tip lambs. Embryos. Doing well on them, of course. Yes, I know. I'm pleased with them. Excellent. I'm pleased with them. So no, they're doing very well at the moment. So I'll tell you better in August. Right, good enough. And I'm going to open the floor up to you, Di. You got any dirt? You're going to dig on a few of your fellow pals that are going to bring it back and shoot you with it? I think one of the best ever times I've ever had was at the Royal Welsh. Now, I think I represented Scotland in the Worthington Cup of the Woolman. So I must have been 22, so 20 years ago maybe. 19, 20 years ago, and I remember Beachy was down, and Big Chunk, Ian Lammy, Jimmy Dunn, Ur Allen, Bob Curry, George Golden. We were all up at I think Rob Patterson was there as well. We were all up in the Stocksman bit because Beachy was always showing. Mm-hmm. And he just had his trailer with an on and out the back of it, and they brought out this 5-gallon bottle of vodka. And we sat round about, this is about 10 o'clock in the morning, and we sat round and we started and we said, time we drink half of that, that'll be us done for the day, boys. Well, do you know, I think we finished it 3 times. And there was actually an old couple sat in their car eating their sandwich about 10 o'clock, and they actually were still sitting there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when we left. Because we're actually shore beachy. We actually done an impression of shearing them, and it was just unbelievable. Bob Curry doing expressions, and it was one of the best days of my life. Like, we still talk about the year the Welsh show, and none of us have been back since because we're scared it's never going to be trumped. And we walked into the bar, and Dougie Drysdale says, "Who are you boys been out? They have been looking for you." And we were absolute reek, rugby tackling each other and falling asleep.
The Royal Welsh is great crack, isn't it? And of course, Beachy used to come down, originally he came down with 8 sheep, him and Jack Dunlop, and they'd show sheep for my old man. I think they won the Royal Welsh. My old man was getting a bit slower on his knees, and he'd send the 2 boys out as jockeys, and they always came down, they gave it a good crack. And I'm going back there this year for the first time in 20 years. I'm taking sheep there this year. So, yeah, looking forward to it. Great show.
It is an amazing show. A lot of other shows can learn a lot from them.
Yeah, and you'll be showing yourself at the Highland this year, maybe taking the Shorthorns and the Texels?
We're showing Texels at the Highland. We've got 2 Gimmers and 2 ewe lambs going. I would like to be showing Shorthorns, but they're actually on the waiting list already at the Shorthorns.
Okay.
We're actually taking 2 Shorthorn heifers to the Yorkshire. That's the World Congress show at the Yorkshire this year.
It'll be a big show of Shorthorns at the Yorkshire this year.
Yes, so we're on the waiting list to that as well, but we did get dealt where there was only 18 in the waiting list and there was plenty of spaces, so we needed to wait till it was closed. So, no, back to the Highland. I would like to take them and I can help Alan Jackson a wee bit in the cattle. If I was to show mine, I said I would help him out or help him in the Shorthorns classes. But at the Highland, the time you go through with the sheep on the Wednesday, we show the Shorthorns on the Thursday, and then you're helping the cattle on Thursday, and then Friday we show Texels in the morning, and then I commentate from the Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday. So it's basically a very long week. At least with sheep, I can check them in the morning, the shearing's next to the Texels, you can feed them and come back over and keep an eye on them. But the cattle, it's a bit more work with the parade and everything else. So we'll just go to the Yorkshire.
Well, I'm there at the Highland commentating again this year. It's been designated with given that job back again. Cattle and sheep, I think this time. I'm not quite sure how it's going to go, so maybe we'll commentate at each other, and just like we're talking at each other just now, Di, it'd be nice to get together and chat about some other people's bullshit for a change.
Well, maybe we can give a bit more abuse to people then when you see somebody you recognise.
I think you're being very reserved about giving abuse to people because I think you might feel it coming back to you, to be fair.
I think one of the best abuse I've ever given or been part of, maybe, was at the Highland Show the year Graham Burke judged the Beltex, and Graham came into the shearing tent, I think it was a Saturday, and my fellow commentator, extremely cheeky, Finlay Smith, and Graham came in, and we actually stopped what we're doing and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a celebrity in here." And you could see people looking around, and Graham was standing up the back with a nice blazer on and the hair all done, standing in the wife, smug as could be. And we're just going to, and who's the celebrity we have? We have the Beltex judge in today, and you could honestly see Graham's face going from a lovely pinkish colour to complete and utter beetroot. And I think we slagged him for a good 5 minutes, and you could see Graham trying to crawl into his jacket. And he has told me that revenge is a dish better served cold.
I think you might be getting that one coming back to you sometime fairly soon.
But it was absolutely brilliant. It's some of the best abuse I've ever seen in my life.
Abuse, the best form of crack there. And hey, we're not giving each other enough abuse tonight, but it's been absolutely splendid to have you on, Diane. As I said, one of the great characters in amongst the breed, and I know you're busy about the still lambing and what have you, but we'll catch up at the Highland and have a dram, and those guys that don't know you, look out for your day. You'll be in amongst the Texels and everywhere else, and everybody make their way across to the shearing stand to hear you handing it out.
Hear me talking pish. If I could find that school teacher that told me my talking would get me nowhere.
Little did she know the dizzy heights she'd get to in the shearing tent.
Yes, I know, exactly.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. Years ago, there was a big, again, it was a Texel sale, and Alan Alson was down staying at Carlinside.
Mhm.
And you know the sessions used to have back at Carlinside. One day, like young Jim Curry was absolutely steaming, and he fell asleep at the kitchen table. So Alson and that grabbed a pair of big Jim Curry's wife fronts and stuck them on Curry. And then his father come down in the morning for his milking and couldn't find his pants, and they were on Curry lines in the middle of the kitchen player.
And he said, brilliant. Brilliant. Oh, Big Jim was a great character, sorely missed.
Yeah, one of the characters in the breeds, many breeds between blondes and Texels. And...
Certainly so. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, Di Clark. There, as I said, the characters come in all shapes and sizes, and you're all shapes and sizes yourself. And we've really enjoyed having your company on the Top Lines and Tails podcast, and look forward to catching up with you maybe at the Highland Show. And thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Top Lines and Tails podcast, and we are on this podcast very grateful to the sponsorship that we've received from Harborough, who of course are suppliers and manufacturers of quality livestock nutrition, but also of nutritional advice. And in these days of spiralling input costs and uncertainty within the industry, why not get in touch with Harborough and see how they can help you with all your dietary and input requirements. You can find them on their website or on Facebook. And whilst on the subject of Facebook, of course, you can look out the Top Lines and Tails Facebook page, where you'll find photographs and other information to back up this episode and other episodes.